The action of the manhwa continues at a tense moment. Our main character named Kang Yoo-jung watches as a girl is attacked by bandits. The guy understands that in this situation he is completely powerless because just recently his phone was stolen and he cannot even call the police. However, this seemingly innocent girl, after sensing danger, transforms herself using her genome and invites the bully to come out once in a while. The girl continues saying that she thought these losers were ordinary people. Meanwhile, Yoo-jung is surprised by the huge muscles like Arnold Schwarzenegger. After that, we watch as this girl, having turned into a cougar, repeating the legendary Mike Tyson, takes a fighting stance. The reaction of the opponents is not long in coming. We immediately see how one of the hooligans immediately tries to strike, but Puma manages to retreat. In addition to the fact that the girl calmly walks away from this pathetic blow, she does not leave him without an answer and kindly introduces his dog's nose to her paw. This blow was so strong that he was able to bring this pathetic dog out of his bestial form. Meanwhile, there were still 2 opponents left. Immediately after this, a second bully tries to attack this girl, who thinks that his blow will really take the girl by surprise, who is already ready to bury him. This guy really achieves more success than the last dog, because he manages to hit the girl but receive an instant response. The most powerful blow of the Puma is again enough to bring this brainless jackal out of his bestial form with one blow and open a fountain of blood. This girl was clearly disappointed in these hooligans, because she easily dealt with 2 and 2 hits and looked at the third loser. The dog decided that from that moment he became stronger. Having seen how his friends were dealt with, he tried to carry out a quick kick, but the Puma seemed to evaporate. After making a blow, this dog looks back to look at the result of his blow, but he understands that very soon this fight will end for him. But it was already too late because the girl was already on the other side of this dude and dealt him 2 quick blows that turned him back into a Genshin Impact player. Meanwhile, we begin to observe the leader of this gang of losers. He decided that he was in the edit and shouted to the girl that now she would dine on the earth. After that, this dog with red hair did the same move from Dying Light by kicking in flight with his 2 legs. However, this blow does absolutely no damage to the girl. She just grins at this guy's phrase, saying that of all the things she's heard, this one suits her best. Then a spark of thirst for battle appears between these two, and they instantly begin to close the distance between each other to measure their strength. Having sufficiently reduced the distance, the bully performs a front kick on the Puma, but she successfully avoids the next blow using her right hand. Immediately after a successful block, the cougar approaches this loser to rearrange his teeth using his fist. While in flight from this powerful blow to the jaw, this bully who is trying to seem cool also comes out of his bestial form. This blow performed by this girl was much stronger than the previous ones, because she forces the guy to clean up this dirty town with his body. After this cool waifu deals with a gang of hooligans alone, she calmly transforms into human form and heads to her motorcycle. However, this girl does not approach her motorcycle in order to leave. She takes an electric razor from the motorcycle bag and moves towards the hooligans. Approaching the guy with red hair who started this unsuccessful attack, she turns on the machine and tries to make Dwayne Johnson out of this loser. Next, the girl finally makes it clear to our main character that she has known about him all this time. She tells him to get out of here if he has no business. After our main character sees how this girl scattered the hooligans, he is not going to argue with her and leaves. He wonders if everyone in this area fights so well. But suddenly this girl calls out to the guy, telling him to stop. Kang Yoo-jung begins to tremble and slowly turns around to find out why he was called. Next, we see that this seemingly serious girl shows a small sign of attention by rudely throwing a pair of shoes at our barefoot protagonist. Meanwhile, this cool girl is already climbing on her motorcycle and telling Yoo-jung to take those new Nikes and get out of here quickly. Having said this phrase, the girl quickly leaves on business. She probably forgot to complete the daily tasks in Raid Shadow Legends. The main character looks after her. After the girl disappears from sight, the guy looks down and, being without one sock and shoes, looks at the pair of Nike shoes that were thrown to him. Kang Yoo-jung thanks the girl for such a gift, but he was brought up well, and even in such a rotten city, he returns the sneakers to the owner and calls it theft. However, our main character relaxes early because he hears some motorcycle approaching him again at high speed. It's not hard to guess that this sound came from a girl who came here again and asked Kang Yoo-jung if he happened to come from Seoul. The guy was surprised. Next, this girl picks up our main character and reports that Choi Kang-ho says that he met him in Seoul. She is surprised that he really came. Continuing to drive somewhere at full speed, the girl asks our main character why he is barefoot. Is he really not afraid of infection in this city? The guy reports that there is nothing of the kind. He just cannot afford to wear something stolen from another person. A girl with huge biceps looks at the guy behind her and realizes that he is very funny but no less strange. After some time, we watch as a girl stops on some street and our main character dismounts from a motorcycle. The mysterious girl tells Kang Yoo-jung that he needs to wait here and she will return in the morning. She also adds that the area is relatively safe. Without waiting for our main character's answer, the girl immediately leaves this place on her iron stallion and wishes our main character good luck. The face of our main character makes it clear to us that he did not understand at all what happened from the moment he got into this terribly criminal city. But his surprise is interrupted by a feeling of severe hunger because he has not eaten anything since the very moment he arrived in this Gotham. Due to the fact that our main character has not eaten anything, he looks very exhausted. He sits down on the nearest plastic chair because he has no strength left in his legs. Having sat down to rest, vivid memories of how this tough man with red hair, being a man, destroyed a tiger like a kitten, pop up in the head of our main character. He also recalls very recent events. A girl with the genome of turning into a puma no less coolly knocked out a whole gang of hooligans. Returning to the real world, our main character realizes that despite the fact that all his things were stolen, he does not regret it because he has to survive in this harsh area. He needs to become stronger for this, just like these giga-chads who scatter hooligans left and right. He falls asleep. The course of events is interrupted and continues with a sharp awakening of our main character from a strange sound. He mystically moves to someone's house. Next, we watch the teacher of our main character, who is surprised by Kang Yoo-jung's tenacity because he really came to Jeonju and also got to the desired area. Meanwhile, looking at the face of this klutz, we understand that he does not understand what happened and what's wrong, because just recently he had dreams where he was a giga-chad. Then something unexpected happens. Instead of asking questions to his teacher, he closes his eyes and after that he begins to cry, as if after a defeat in the League of Legends. A man with red hair in bewilderment asks Yoo-jung why he is crying. Yoo-jung, wiping his tears, explains to him that he is just happy. A couple of seconds later, from the stomach of our main character comes the roar of a mad beast that is very hungry and notifies all nearby people about it. Hearing this, the red-haired guy tells the guy to get up and eat as much as he wants. This clearly greatly cheers up our main character. While eating a portion of rice, Kang Yoo-jung complains to his teacher that as soon as he arrived in the city, they stole his money and his phone and left him barefoot. Continuing to eat various foods, our main character reports that he understood what it was like to die in a foreign land because his experience was simply terrifying. Next, our main character tells the guy that he, being in Seoul, says that he is very famous, but he did not warn him that he is famous in a bad way. This guy clearly understands what we are talking about because he immediately begins to apologize. He says that he is sorry that they were not able to meet more safely. Then this cool guy, as if nothing had happened, falls silent and begins to drink his delicious home hour with a satisfied face. To be honest, he is surprised in his thoughts. He did not expect that this asshole would actually come. He remembers that on that day he impulsively said a lot of things. This guy with red hair is backed into a corner because now he has absolutely no time to care about this brat. And if he blames him on Junmi, she will probably be furious. Raising his gaze to our main character, who continues to greedily absorb hundreds of grams of various food, he is surprised at the brutal appetite of this guy. Suddenly, a brilliant idea comes to the mind of this psychopath. After digesting it a little, he realizes that it will most likely work. Next, this guy extends his hand to get acquainted. He introduces himself as the Red Tiger of Jeonju, or Choi Kang-ho, who is 17 years old. His feature is inadequate strength. Kang Yoo-jung, continuing to chew his food, shakes the guy's hand and introduces himself by his name, and says that he is also 17 years old, and his peculiarity is the inability to transform. Next, Kanho puts his hand on our main character's shoulder and tells him to eat, because this time he fed him, but from now on he will take care of himself because he has gone to hell. Then the course of events accelerates and we move to the next day. Kangho and Yoo-jung, meanwhile, are on the roof of the building near the bench press rack. Next, Kanho tells our main character the truth. He says that everything he said that day was nonsense, but despite this he came and he is surprised. Hearing this revelation, our main character opens his mouth wide and tries to realize that he was very hasty with his decision to come. However, approaching the wooden bench and sitting down a little on them, Kanho tells the guy that he doesn't have to worry because he will keep his words. But this guy does all this taking into account that he will get something in return. He asks Yoo-jung if he will really get something in exchange for training and help. Our main character at this time awkwardly looks at the floor and reports that this is not entirely true, because all the money that was given to him for his studies was stolen yesterday. Kang Yoo-jung takes his head with both hands and remembers the vile faces of the Valorant haters who robbed him yesterday. Meanwhile, Kang-ho does not understand what they are talking about. Realizing that we are talking about cash, this guy is enveloped in a flame of anger and shouts at the guy, saying that he is an idiot because in this city you cannot carry large sums of money with you. However, despite the fact that our main character is not able to pay for his services with money, he understands that he will benefit if he uses him as a test subject. Next, the guy with red hair tells our main character that he also has his own pack, which is very strong, but they really lack members. Therefore, his new plan is that this time, he will take a good guy and develop him in order to replenish his ranks. However, there is one significant nuance. He understands that he has no idea how to turn a weakling into a tough warrior. But there are also advantages, because if he is his first test subject and a model of success, and if he can make such a loser stronger, then he can make anyone cool. The guy is just overjoyed. He likes all this movement and he tells the guy to do whatever he needs. He also says that he will do anything if only it helps him. Kanho reluctantly lowers his tired body onto the bench and begins to seriously think about how to make a warrior out of a loser idiot. Next, the guy takes out a piece of paper with characteristics and says that they will conduct a test to identify abilities, and after looking at the overall assessment, they will decide what to do next. Next, the two proceed to perform a test. The first stage was to identify the strength of our protagonist through heavy physical exercise. Immediately after the heavy physical exercise, there was a test that was supposed to reveal the level of Kang Yu-jung's perseverance. The third test to determine the general characteristics of our main character was to measure reaction speed using some kind of game. These unbearable training and tests of our main character lasted all day because we were already watching the sunset, which meant the onset of evening. Our main character, during the last test, ran so hard that after the last few tens of meters he fell. Kanho admitted that he had worked hard. Summing up, he said that he has 20 points out of 35 points. He has very good endurance and tenacity, but if you look at the strength, it really sucks. But looking at the exhausted Kang Yu-jung, he reports that even these indicators will be enough. And today they are heading to the city center and going hunting. Kang Yu-jung, who had been going through various tests all day, raised his head in surprise and asked the teacher what other hunt he was talking about. The course of events shifts to heading to the center. Kanho explains that in this city there is a division into the old and new cities, and the old one is chaos, going to the center of which even for him is dangerous. Continuing to head towards the center, Kanho continues the story that the old city is full of bastards who cannot even raise their heads. But from today, our main character opens his hunt for the sheep that are walking around here. Or, to be a little more precise, the hunt is not for those who are engaged in robbery. Kanho reports that this is just a great idea, because with the help of such a hunt he will help people, and by rummaging through their pockets he will earn money for food, 2 birds with 1 stone. However, this loser again begins to worry about things that are completely inappropriate at this moment. Upon hearing about theft, he immediately said that it was wrong. Looking at Kang Yu-jung, Kanho asked him not to pray for complete nonsense, because he just recently said that he would do anything, including removing the Genshin impact. But our main character continues to say that even despite this, theft remains a crime, and listening to this, the guy becomes terribly bored. A moment later, Kanho starts pointing his finger at Yu-jung and saying that he wants to puke when he sees idiots like him who don't stop choking. Next, Kanho calls the guy beaten, robbed, an errand boy who has lost everything, a shameful crybaby, and an object of mockery. He asks how much longer he is going to live like this. Kanho even recalls the words of our protagonist that the world is natural selection. Saying that these are the right words, he adds that the weak are nothing more than meat. The guy continues his speech by saying that in this world, no one will come to the aid of the weak, and if he does not have the strength, then he will not be able to protect anyone. There are only 2 choices left. Either he becomes stronger or he continues to be a League of Legends player, and buy battle passes annually. There is only one option. Next, Kanho asks our main character the only question. He asks him if he came to him in order to become stronger and try both options. By becoming stronger, forcing idiots to kneel, isn't that the way to make the world simpler, but following his words that violence is also a crime? How then to learn? Kanho summed it up by saying that Yu-jung is talking complete nonsense, and if he is going to continue to be a weakling, then it would be better for him to return to Seoul. He will pay for the fare. Hearing this, our main character begins to shake and tries to make a decision for himself. Take the path of becoming a gig child or return to Seoul and continue to be a loser. But this time, the inner beast in our main character won because he went to the hooligans, saying that he understood everything and would try to live up to expectations. However, after a couple of moments, our main character also confidently turns around and returns to his teacher, leaving him surprised. Next, the guy admits that, to be honest, he has no experience in fighting, so he would be grateful if he was given some advice. Kanho replies that he needs to do the same as he did with the leopard last time, because a weak body and lack of skills can be overcome with the help of weapons and speed of attack. He also adds by pointing his finger at his eyes that the two of them have the symbol of the three great predators, the golden eyes of a tiger. Kokno explains that he can use this symbol because anyone who sees these golden eyes will immediately chicken out and begin to fear him. Next, we watch the first steps of our main character on the path to becoming a gig child, appearing in front of the bully and calling him to him. A bully with a large scar on his nose turns around in surprise to see who just called him from a dark alley. After this, our main character comes out of a dark alley in order to show himself to the bully, and most importantly, for him to see his golden eyes. Sometime after the bully with blonde hair takes a closer look, he notices his eyes and realizes that he just ran into a tiger. But despite belonging to practically the strongest transformation genome, this guy does not have enough confidence at all, because he begins to shake and mumble. After this awkward attempt to scare our protagonist with a bully, there is a very awkward silence from them. As expected, our main character has just lost all the advantage he would get from his eyes, because after a couple of moments he immediately goes flying. After that, the idiot with blonde hair looks down at Yujung and asks what he wants from them. Without waiting for an answer from our main character Ayomine Daki from the basketball anime, Kuroko swings his hand to deliver a powerful blow to Yujung. The blow successfully reaches its recipient, pretty much crushing the face of our main character and continuing his flight and cleaning the asphalt. Immediately after the first blow to Kang Yujung, he was hit by a second no less powerful one. The talent to be a punching bag still cannot be lost. A few moments later, we are already watching the boring picture of our main character, having been beaten, lying on the ground and looking at the floor. Next, the red tiger approaches our main character, telling him that he had to choose idiots with whom he would not have trouble. But for Yujung, they all looked the same. Sitting down next to Kang Yujung, Kanho told him that he needed to find singles because they were easy prey. But despite the failure, he smiled. This guy was a clear optimist, because even in such a failure, he found something to be surprised at. He was surprised that Yujung did not even notice how he was powerfully hit. But due to the fact that our main character could not transform for a long time, he completely lost the ferocity that is characteristic of predators. And this is a serious problem. Hearing this, our main character was clearly depressed, because he didn't even have an idea how he could get his ferocity back. However, Kanho hastened to reassure our protagonist by saying that there is one place where even those as naive as him become wild predators. Hearing about the mysterious place, our main character began to worry because this madman could have meant a fire pit or something like that. But this horrific place, according to words, was an ordinary, huge, deserted potato field. Our main character was puzzled by such a strange place. The owner of this potato field, grandfather, has long told children that they can steal potatoes, but they must not get caught. Interrupting Kanho's story, our main character asked what would happen to those who were caught stealing. The red-haired man with a smile on his face replied that they would be beaten to death. But Kanho hastened to reassure our protagonist by saying that before everything was really like that, but now grandfather is already old, and his memory is no longer the same. Next, we watch the same grandfather, the owner of the potato farm, who was simply divinely pumped up. Kanho said that it was worth it. After a hard day's work, the old grandfather wipes the sweat from his face with a towel and enjoys the silence and very peaceful environment around the farm. Next, we watch our main character and his teacher, the red tiger, who have been on the road all this time. Kanho did not understand why the field is in a mountain valley. After these two had very little time left to enter the areas of the potato field, Kanho asked his student to be more careful and quiet. Next, these two used a very effective method of all times and peoples, hiding in the bushes and looking out from them. These two, being in the bushes, have a beautiful view of the huge potato fields that belong to an old but very stern grandfather. Our main character's teacher turns to him and tells him to carefully monitor his actions and repeat them exactly after. Next, Kan Yujung watches as his teacher very quietly and carefully crawls towards the desired potato fields of the jock's grandfather. After this experienced potato thief fills his bag with delicious fruits, he begins to crawl back to the hiding area. Then Kanho gets up and with a satisfied expression looks at the bag filled with potatoes that he collected. He calls this process lightness if you repeat it. The guy looks at the bag filled with potatoes and doubts whether he can follow his teacher and also successfully steal a whole bag of potatoes. Stepping aside, the red-haired man holds out a bag of potatoes he recently got and says that this is his treat. The main character accepts it and thanks the teacher. With folded hands, Kanho declares that from this very moment, his currency is not primogems but potatoes. Kang Yujung looks at his teacher with a puzzled expression. The guy explains that due to the fact that he did not want to use the money taken from the hooligans, they will make adjustments to his diet, even if it will be difficult. But there is nothing to do. While our main character looks at the contents of the bag, his teacher continues to set the rules that one meal costs 10 potatoes, and when he spends everything, he will return to Seoul. But Kanho understands that our main character is still his first student. He asks him if he can treat him to potatoes again. Next, Kanho points somewhere to the side and says, if Yu-jung follows this path, then at the end of the path he will find a wild peach tree that is really tasty. The guy continued by saying that for just one peach he would give him one portion of dinner. Our main character was surprised and asked if he was sure of his words. The teacher continues that in order for him to develop his body, regardless of training, he simply needs to eat well. Looking at the thin physique of our protagonist, Kanho said that for his weight class he should have a particularly good appetite. After that, the red-haired man began to leave, saying that if he growled his stomach and trudged slowly, he would throw him out. Yu-jung was surprised that his teacher was leaving. Turning around like in dramas, the sensei of our main character stated that his departure is obvious because he is not a slacker and he has his own business. After this, the sensei really left our main character with ragged clothes and one sack of potatoes. He only wished him good luck. Left alone with his thoughts, our main character understands that as soon as he thinks about stealing potatoes, his soul becomes heavy. The guy continues his way along the path because his sensei promised him that at the end of this path, there will be a peach tree, the peach of which will give him a whole dinner. Having reached the end of the path, our main character is very surprised because what he was going to find is far from where he expected. After all, this damn peach tree was located on Mother Everest itself, or more precisely on a sheer cliff and almost at its top. Taking a closer look, our main character realized that the tree he needed, which his sensei was talking about, was very high and out of reach. Realizing the complexity of the mission, which seemed very easy to him, our protagonist's jaw dropped as if it weighed hundreds of kilograms. Having recovered from his surprise, our main character returned his jaw to its orbit and, looking at the rock, doubted that even if he stood well on the stones, he would hardly be able to collect them. But at this moment, the courage and testosterone reserves of our protagonist increased because he intended to try to complete this difficult task. After this, our main character really began to try to climb this rock in order to reach the desired peach tree. Rising higher and higher with each movement, he realized that at that moment he should have simply abandoned all thoughts and continued to act like a giga-chad. But the luck or skill of our protagonist ends abruptly when the stone he grabbed with his right hand falls away from the rock. Immediately after this treacherous moment, our main character began to slide down a huge rock. However, having shown resourcefulness and reaction with which our main character was all right, he manages to grab onto another guy, stopping his fall. Having stopped, our main character began to laugh because he had just nearly died, because if he had continued to fall, something terrible would have happened to him. Having experienced the fall, Kang Yu-jung looked up and realized that because of his mistake, his path had become much longer than it was a couple of seconds ago. But looking at his hand, wounded because of the huge rock, the guy realized that he no longer had any attempts to climb this huge rock. Kang Yu-jung used critical thinking and realized that he still had a way out, so he needed to head to the potato field. Therefore, after a while we watched as our main character found himself again in the body of a ninja, hiding in the bushes near a potato field. Slowly making his way to the treasured fruits, our main character remembered the words of his sensei that if he got caught, he would die. He continued to doubt. Finding himself in a potato field, Kang Yu-jung was thinking about whether stealing from someone else's garden is really a normal thing for an ordinary Drake fan. Having approached the treasured potato fruit, his thoughts visited him again. He asked himself the question of what benefit and help this action would bring him. Digging up the pumped-up grandfather's garden bed with his bare hands, he finally saw that he had dug up 2 potatoes. He was immediately happy. Next, Kang Yu-jung in his thoughts already began to apologize for the theft, but this time he will finish the job and will definitely repay him. Suddenly, Kang Yu-jung realized that all this time behind him was the same pumped-up grandfather who was the owner of this field. Seeing the owner of the field right in front of us, the face of our main character violated all possible laws of anatomy, showing us the highest degree of fear and surprise. The old man, standing in front of our main character, shook off the dirt and was surprised that after so many years, a bastard appeared on the field who was very noisy. This grandfather made a menacing face from a horror movie. He told the guy that he had seen his face for the first time. He asked if he knew what he was doing with those he caught. Then our main character received a powerful slap on the head from this powerful business. The second mission of our main character again turned out to be a failure. The next frame we watch our main character, who generously received a blow from his grandfather. He understood that his 2 missions were too high a level of difficulty. Amazing events simply could not stop, because when he returned to his bag of potatoes, he saw a wild boar feasting on his supplies. The guy immediately took the nearest stick from the ground and began to heroically defend his potatoes, trying to drive away this impudent wild boar. After Kang Yu-jung scares off the wild boar, he picks up his bag of potatoes and is horrified that the wild boar ate so many potatoes. Despite the fact that even the wild boar probably felt guilty, our main character began to yell at him to leave immediately. After the guy counted how many potatoes he had lost, he fell to his knees and began screaming that this damn boar ate 15 of them, a whole half of his potatoes. Holding his head, the guy realized that with the current supplies, if he doesn't get peaches or potatoes, he will be kicked out of this city in 3 days. But if he returns to Seoul as a weakling again, he will again live in hell. Then Kang Yu-jung placed the remains of his potatoes on the nearest tree. The guilty wild boar came out of the bushes again and looked pitifully at Kang Yu-jung, but he in turn continued to shout at the poor animal to leave. Then the guy was filled with confidence, after which he again began his path to the potato field. If Kanho achieved success with such ease, then he can too. Continuing to confidently move towards the potato floor, the guy understood that there must be a way to succeed. You can't just think. The body also needs to be trained. Meanwhile, we are watching the same muscular grandfather, the owner of the farm, who at this time is resting and drinking water. But his peaceful rest is interrupted by the fact that his hearing, despite his old age, again hears that someone has snuck onto his holy lawn. Looking at his majestic potato field, the old grandfather was surprised that the one who came to him for the first time in a long time had perseverance. Next, we watch our main character who is trying to get potatoes during the second attempt. At this moment, he is crawling. The resting grandfather told our main character to make even more efforts. Then he decided to try to break his character. Meanwhile, the course of events is interrupted for 10 whole days later. Judging by the frames that we see, we understand that our main character is still in the forest. Next, we watch our main character who is very tired. He understands that going to the mountains every day like this is really very difficult. Having once again reached the rock on which the peach tree was located, our main character set himself the goal of starting to climb the cliff for peaches before sunset. Next, we watch as our main character began to carry out his plans, because in the next frames we watch Kang Yu-jung diligently climbing a cliff. After trying for 10 days to get at least something to get food, our main character was noticeably successful, because immediately in his first attempt of the day, he climbed to a decent height. Despite the fact that the guy had already climbed several tens of meters up looking down, he still felt a feeling of fear of falling and possibly even death. But a few moments later, our main character fails again because the stone he relied on fails him again, and you are a brute. This time our main character ran out of luck, which is why he went into free fall with his back down. But you can relax, because all these events associated with the fall were just the guy's disturbing thoughts. He thought that if he fell from such a height, he would 100% be seriously injured. That is why our main character backs up and goes down. He decides that this is his limit for today, because he cannot climb when his legs are shaking so much. Therefore, our main character decided not to waste his strength, which was already running low, so he headed back to the potato field to try his luck. But this time our main character began to think about his plan of action in advance before going mindlessly to steal potatoes. Our main character again got to the potato fruit, but even this time the guy's secrecy was not enough for him, because a grandfather appeared behind him and complained about the noise. That is why our main character receives a powerful potato blow from the potato lord, or the owner of the garden. Leaving our main character lying on the ground, the grandfather told him, calling him a little bird, that this place was the most watched place. Come on, relax. This time it was imagination again. Kang Yu-jung thought that since the 4th day he didn't say anything, but he still got caught. This time our main character managed to get a lot. He immediately began to run away with the thought that if he successfully escapes, it will be a success. But this time the appearance of the stern grandfather was not imagination. The grandfather folded his hands in front of him and told the chick that his skills had not improved at all. Once again shaking his hands before beating him, this time the grandfather turned to the little one, saying that it seemed to him that he had something to tell him. However, the man very quickly changes his mind, saying that most likely it would seem pointless, so he began to swing before striking. After a while, we watch Kang Yu-jung lying on the ground, thinking about how many times he challenged himself today, but every time the difficulty level rose. Looking into the sky like Kaneki Ken, the guy realized that he had lost almost all the potatoes he had, and since yesterday all his actions had been in vain. The guy understood that all the actions he did were risky, and if he continued in the same spirit, in 2 days he would be kicked out of the house back to Seoul. At this moment, when Kang Yu-jung was close to losing heart, he remembered a conversation with his sensei about how in this clearing, even people like him become wild. He realized that everything that was in his head was wildness, which means that natural instinct and harsh temperament are all very difficult. Finding himself at his sensei's house, our main character decided to ask him something, so he turned to a muscular man with red hair. Next, the guy told the sensei that all this time he had been caught in a potato field. He really didn't understand what was happening, so he asked to give him some advice. Despite our main character's request, his sensei said that our main character was whining again. He only reminded him that he lacked wildness again. However, Kang Yu-jung once again did not understand what his sensei was saying. He again did not understand what this strange savagery meant. Meanwhile, the guy with red hair lay down on his bed and told the guy that from his lips the word wildness had no meaning, so he needed to think of it. These words of Kanho once again created as many questions as possible in the head of our protagonist, but in no case provided any answers. Meanwhile, Kanho, getting ready to sleep, told our main character that if he doesn't understand anything at all, then let him watch a documentary about wildlife that is being shown on TV. Next, our main character listened to the advice of his smartest and strongest sensei. He immediately went to the TV and studied the documentary. Meanwhile, a wild cougar appeared on the screen and looked at our main character through the screen. Further on the screen, this wild puma, being in the wild, attacks poor herbivores. She showed that very savagery. Watching this picture that demonstrated wild nature, our main character finally begins to understand a little about the barbaric morals of wild animals. At this moment, something clearly appears in the eyes of our protagonist. What passion, rage, and other feelings, he clearly intends to fulfill his mission. Judging by the following frames, we see that Kang Yu-jung immediately appears in the potato field, inspired by wild animals. The grandfather immediately understands who is coming. The pumped-up grandfather takes off his hat and slowly moves towards Kang Yu-jung. He admits that he likes his tenacity, but even if he tries his best, it won't be enough. After a couple of moments, we watch as this grandfather again appears in front of our main character, but this time there is no fear in his eyes. Next, Kang Yu-jung addresses this man who approached him as a grandfather. This man is very surprised by this, so he calls him uncle. After this, Kang Yu-jung directly asks this real guardian of the potato field. He asks him how he discovered it all this time. The surprised grandfather begins to warm up in order to beat the guy. He is surprised at the impudence of this brat, because he asks this from the owner of the field. Suddenly something happens to this grandfather. He realizes that he has already heard a similar question. He goes back in time from this question. Returning to the past, we observe the same owner of the field who looks younger. The young sensei of our main character asks his grandfather the same question. That is why the grandfather begins to make a concession and tells the secret of how he discovers it. The fact is that he has excellent hearing, so he can easily hear all the sounds in his field. The impudence of our main character does not stop. He asks if this means that there is no way to steal something from the field unnoticed. The grandfather says that out of 50 people, only one succeeded. This guy's thoughts are horrified. He understands that this chance is equal to the chance to become a civil servant, because with such an attitude, it would be strange if he were not caught. The guy goes on to say that even though he is unscrupulous, he will use the same method as wild animals because he is determined to do this. After a few moments, the guy finally notices that there is a glimmer of savagery in our protagonist's eyes. He asks if he wants to transform and do it by force. However, the judgment of this old owner of the lawn was wrong, because instead of turning, our main character throws dirt into the old man's eyes. Due to the fact that the grandfather did not expect such a move, he does not have time to do anything. He tries to cover himself with his hands, but unsuccessfully gets dirt in his eyes. After this, grandfather leaves after getting pieces of earth in his face. He looks at the place where Kang Yu-jung was recently, but he literally disappeared. The guy, meanwhile, realizes that he learned this by watching herbivores, because after they meet predators, they run with all their might. After all, such a weakling as our main character needs real ferocity, which is inherent even in herbivores. After seeing this guy's move, the grandfather begins to laugh, because he thought that he would turn into a tiger and run away. Next, we watch the face of this grandfather, which becomes ferocious. He is offended that this kid is forcing him to run away at such an old age. This grandfather, after a few seconds, catches up with our main character and admits that running away may be a good way, but if he catches up with him, his work will be in vain. However, even in this case, our main character this time has a method to escape while being persecuted by this grandfather. He opens the package. After this, we watch as our main character then releases the package, and a bunch of stones fall out of it, which was tactically ingenious. His ingenious escape plan works just fine, because this grandfather did not expect such a development of events at all, so this technique is effective. This move by our protagonist works so well that this grandfather not only becomes confused, but also falls to the floor while sweeping the lawn. After this old grandfather falls, our main character accelerates and runs even faster. Escaping from his possessions, he asks his grandfather for forgiveness for this. However, our protagonist's move only awakens a spark in this man. He smiles like an animal and looks at this arrogant brat. Then this elderly man takes an unexpected step. He finally uses his transformation gene and turns into a huge elephant. Our main character, who thinks that he has almost escaped, decides to turn around and sees a simply terrifying picture of a huge elephant rushing after him. He understands that right now he is being chased by a huge elephant that will simply tear him to pieces if he slows down and doesn't think of something. The guy continues to run and doesn't look back. He's trying to force himself not to be afraid, because no matter what happens, he shouldn't stop running. Now he needs to use this fear. For the first time in his life, Kang Yu-jung managed to use his fear for good, because this time fear turned our main character into a powerful Ferrari. At this time, the grandfather, being in the form of an elephant, is surprised. He understands that in the end, desperate fear seems to be able to overcome the feeling of remorse. At this very moment, the indecisive gaze of our main character that constantly haunted him disappeared, and at that moment, it intensified. Kang Yu-jung at that moment had become so successful in his running skill, using his herbivore skill, this guy's running caused a cloud of smoke to rise. Meanwhile, the huge muscular elephant realized that he would no longer be able to catch this, because he had entered too much into the stream and could no longer be caught. At that moment, the elephant realized that a cowardly person is nothing more than simple food, because if he is going to survive, he needs to act without hesitation like now. After the grandfather realized that he no longer had a chance to catch our main character, he did not transform for a very long time, and no matter how much he scared the guy, he could not transform. Meanwhile, we move back to our main character, who finally, after many attempts, was able to take as many as 18 potatoes with him. The face of our main character at that moment when he looked at the many potatoes that he took away was indescribable. He was so happy that tears came to his eyes. Kneeling down next to his package, which had potatoes inside, he shouted with joy into the sky that he had finally succeeded. The course of events is interrupted, and it is transferred 10 days forward. We are transported again to the same potato farm. It is a clear day outside. Next, we again see Kang Yu-jung, who at this time is crawling again in order to get even more potatoes to get his dinner. However, this time our main character relies not only on his vision, but also on his hearing, which he has pumped up many times. He heard movement. Having listened even more, our main character realized that he had definitely not made a mistake yet. He was simply lying motionless on the ground in order to navigate by the sounds. A few moments later, with the help of his amazing hearing, our main character hears a sharp jump from his grandfather, who is about to teach him a lesson. Immediately after, Kang Yu-jung hears that they are already running after him. Without waiting to meet the owner of the field, he once again runs away at amazing speed. Next, we watch a man running towards Kang Yu-jung. He realizes that he hears this brat again. To some extent, he even rejoices. This time, grandfather also prepared for this collision, which is why we then watch as he throws some kind of stone at Kang Yu-jung. A couple of moments later, we watch as this strange object thrown at our main character almost reached Kang Yu-jung. But our main character never ceases to surprise either us or grandfather, because he manages to dodge this throw without even seeing it. Grandfather, seeing this incredible reaction of our main character, is surprised and a big smile spreads on his face. He is sincerely surprised at this move. Further, this owner of his potato empire does not even try to catch up with our main character. Instead, he silently watches the running guy and praises him. Meanwhile, Kang Yu-jung, in a tattered t-shirt and covered in beatings, continues to run away from his grandfather without even looking back, the now confident look on his face. But suddenly something unexpected happens, because he is sharply surprised by the sudden sound of which he is very surprised and stops. The reason for our main character's surprise was our good old friend, a wild boar named Robert, coming out of the bushes and greeting the guy. This time, unlike the past, our main character with a joyful face takes out 2 potatoes from his bag and throws them to Robert, asking if he always comes when he finishes. Next, our main character, breaking into a smile, wonders why his friend Robert is so friendly towards him. Our main character even doubted it for a second. He asked Robert if he really was a wild boar. Robert grunted inquiringly. Next, our main character uses the emotion from Roblox and tells Robert that he has nothing left to give, so he will go his own way. A few minutes later, Kang Yu-jung approaches his wise tree from Skyrim and ties his bundle to a branch, saying that this place is the best. Our main character leaves, leaving behind his bag of potatoes. Turning to Robert, he orders him to take good care of him because today he will achieve success. Immediately after this, Kang Yoo-jung approaches the local Everest and begins to try to climb it. Not for the first time, this time he moves more confidently. Meanwhile, we see that someone is watching our main character from the bushes as he attempts to climb Everest. This man, who played the role of a shinobi, thought that Kang Yoo-jung very successfully stole the potatoes, but why couldn't he pick these peaches? He calls our main character an idiot because all this time he has been climbing the most dangerous path, while there is an easy path very close that looks like a step. The guy understands that Kang Yoo-jung completely misunderstood the essence of this mission, because initially he conceived this mission as a service mission that should not have been difficult. But nevertheless, Kanho was very surprised that Kang Yoo-jung, even despite the difficult path, still copes with this mission, because if he passes this section, he will succeed. This path is the most difficult path along which one could climb the rock. Then we watch as Yoo-jung continues to climb. He is already shaking. While Kanho is worried about our main character, he calls him a fool because if he hesitates, he will die. Then we see a hand behind Kanho. The next moment we watch as this huge muscular hand grabs a man with red hair from behind the neck. This man was the same owner of the farm. He asked Kanho if this asshole was his pupil. Kanho says that it is. Grabbing his throat, Kanho asked his grandfather why he dragged him all the way here. He asked why he just stood there when the guy was shaking so much, and he stood and watched. Further, the grandfather answered this Kanho that he, being a brat, burst out here because he sent the boy about whom he was so worried about to this rock. Further, the grandfather told the red-haired man that his student stopped at a height at which if you fall, you will not die. He praised the guy's vision for such accuracy. After a while, Kanho asks his grandfather why he says this, because the guy could accidentally get injured if he makes a mistake while climbing. After that, the red-haired one reminded him that he did not ask him for such a risky course, so he decided that he would go and dissuade him. He asked not to stop him. The grandfather was surprised that Kanho didn't even poke his nose in, but now he's worried. He added that if he falls, he'll turn into a tiger because he's a tiger man. Finally, Kanho understood why they didn't understand each other. He told his grandfather that this guy just couldn't turn into a tiger. The grandfather was seriously surprised when he heard this, because all this time he thought that this guy was deliberately not transforming into his tiger form. Meanwhile, the course of events returns to our main character. He continues to climb. He thinks that as soon as he comes here, his strong will becomes weak. He understands that he should show courage at least once in all his climbs. If he gets hooked again, it seems to him that everything will work out. But the guy was stopped by the fact that if he backed down during this important moment and understood that if he didn't succeed, he would most likely say goodbye to his life. After Kang Yoo-jung remembers that he might die, he begins to descend because it's not worth risking his life. Next, the grandfather, who suddenly appears below, addresses our main character as a thief. The surprised guy asks his grandfather why he is here. The grandfather asks this guy if he is Kanho's pupil. Because he heard Kanho's story, the guy slowly descending from the cliff answers that he is Kanho's pupil. The owner of the potato field continues saying that he didn't know this. That's why he treats him so badly. Our main character smiles and says that he didn't treat him that badly. Next, a man with a good physique says that he heard that Kang Yoo-jung came to Jeonju to practice, and this is quite commendable. After some time, he mentions that our main character does not know how to transform. He advises the guy in this case not to waste his time and return to Seoul. These words carry a lot of weight for our main character, and he suddenly realizes something and most likely thinks about something. The jock grandfather continues saying that fighting with beast people in human form is very stupid, especially for such a weakling as our main character. However, the guy counters his grandfather's words by saying that Kanho in human form defeated the transformed one, which means that he can do it too. The grandfather continues to persuade our main character, saying that Kanho and him cannot be compared, because the red-haired man trained his body from early childhood. Moreover, absolutely everything is different between them, even down to the bones, and by trying to become stronger, he can end up in a really dangerous situation. After all, even now, according to the owner of the Potato Kingdom, if he falls from a cliff without turning into something very terrible will happen. This grandfather continues to kill the hope inside our main character. He convinces him that he will not achieve anything, and will not be able to become strong. Further, episodes from the first part pop up in the head of our main character. He remembers how he was beaten by almost everyone in his class, and he could not do anything to them. He also remembers how his best friend, the Grey Wolf, was taken by surprise due to his helplessness and ended up severely injured in the hospital. Kang Yoo-jung becomes much more serious and wonders if this grandfather wants to say that people like him, who cannot transform, can only endure and live quietly. These thoughts are simply disgusting to Yoo-jung. He is not going to continue to live like a rag. He doesn't want to die. He remembered that he came to this city to become stronger. Next, Kang Yu-jung bursts into Edith. He decides to try to climb to the top of the cliff because in order to become stronger and rein in the bastards, he is ready to take risks. Continuing to rise to a deadly height in the event of death, he realizes that he has already thought about this thousands of times and has finally decided. He tried to climb even higher. He understood that he needed to climb. He just needed to put his feet in a certain place and the job was done. Next, this guy made a very risky move, but in the next frame we watch how our main character manages to do the incomprehensible. He realizes that after a few moments he succeeds in something that he never could do under pain of death. He begins to laugh. This grandfather witnesses how this guy, before his eyes, just grew up and became a Sigma because he overcame the difficulty that haunted him for a very long time. After the owner of the lawn witnesses a miracle, he approaches the red tiger from behind and decides to contact him. Next, the grandfather says that he wants to see with his own eyes how he will succeed because he was interested in his perseverance. Meanwhile, we watch as our main character is very close to taking the peach. The only way to overcome death is to get angry. Even knowing this information, only one person out of 100 can do the same. Meanwhile, our main character has almost gotten what he wants. It is precisely because our main character was able to overcome the fear of death that this grandfather was convinced that this little guy would succeed in everything with ease, so it is interesting for him to watch. Returning to our main character, we watch as Kang Yu-jung rejoices at the fact that he finally picked a peach, tears welling up in his eyes. Meanwhile, the grandfather breaks into a smile against the backdrop of the rock that our main character conquered. He is clearly pleased with Kang Yu-jung's personal growth. Next, we watch how, after some time, our main character, having descended, will be able to share even with his grandfather, the keeper of the potato fields. In the next shot, we watch the grandfather eating peaches. He really likes this yummy, because the peach is very ripe and tasty. Our main character even manages to share a wild boar named Robert with his friend. He is surprised and grateful. Next, Kanho comes onto the stage and is surprised that our main character treated both his grandfather and the wild boar, because one thing is one dinner. He should be hungry to come to his senses. After Kang Yu-jung sees his sensei, he is very happy that he finally saw him after a long time. Kanho points to an easy way to climb the rock. He says that there was an easy way nearby all this time, but he decided to take an extreme route to climb. Kang Yu-jung replied that he also saw this easy path after he fully climbed, but Kanho rushed to please Yu-jung by saying that the training was completed. Looking at the eyes of our main character, he said that this sparkle of softness in the guy's eyes is beginning to slowly disappear. Next, Kanho, smiling widely, raised his hand and said that they need to continue their movements in order to move on. Then these two finally move to the city. The sensei asks if Yu-jung knows who Grappler and Striker are. The guy replies that he's hearing it for the first time. The red-haired man began to explain, saying that this applies to fighting styles such as boxing, kickboxing, and taekwondo, and even the Jojo Heyman technique. People who use striking-oriented techniques are called strikers. They fight less and strike more. And grapplers are people who use wrestling techniques focused on grabbing and bending, such sports as jiu-jitsu, judo, and wrestling. In this type of fight, if the technique is performed correctly, you can easily defeat even a person who has a higher weight category. However, there is one problem in all this, because people who cannot transform should learn what style. This was the question. However, our main character found it difficult to answer, because in his opinion, fighting with animals is difficult, and if he could overcome the difference in sex. After thinking a little, our main character enthusiastically replies that he needs to master the art of grappling in order to achieve success in the fight against animals. Kanho begins to scold our main character, telling him to never try to fight the transformed opponent. He asks if he saw his fight with the leopard. After all, when you transform, the weight category increases very much because your physical abilities are enhanced to the limit. Next, he asked his student what would happen in his opinion if he wanted to grab the bear. If this grab was carried out, he would simply hang swaying. In addition, after transformation, flexibility, resistance to fractures, and all that change, and for those who can quickly transform, in short, there are too many parameters to give an answer. After all, if our main character, in a confrontation with a transformed man, chooses to capture, and his opponent turns into a hedgehog or a porcupine, then what will he do? That is why when their opponent is in the form of an animal, they need to win the fight with their accurate and strong blows. But even despite this, having transformed, everyone has resistance to them. Then adrenaline is released, and even he is very good at fighting. That is why, no matter how many times the blows are carried out in human form, it will not be possible to deliver an effective blow in this case. After all that has been said, the sensei asks our main character what he should do if he doesn't know how to turn into an animal. The main character grins thoughtfully. Next, our main character answers his sensei that when transforming, the enemy's strength increases but his stamina weakens, so he will run away, wound up and crushing with a blow. Having received and analyzed the answer of his student, the sensei replies that he received 50 points out of 100. Our main character is not happy with this, judging by his behavior. But his note that the transformation greatly consumes stamina is true, because even if the resistance to blows is strong, vital organs can be damaged. At this moment, when the enemy is tired, you need to make precise and quick strikes, and for this there is enough shocking force, and even without transforming, you can win. Next, the red-haired guy asks our main character why, in his opinion, he gets only 50 points out of a possible 100. The sensei of our main character asks Yujong if he is sure that he will not be caught when he runs away, because after the transformation, predators become very fast. Next, Kang Yujong begins to scratch the back of his head and replies that he really doubts that he will really be able to escape from the Beast Man. Kanho continues to say that the important detail in order to win is that in order to defeat the transformed one, a trap is needed. The guy does not understand. Such a trap could be tying legs, locking or luring into a narrow place and all that kind of thing. Before the fight, you need to create an advantageous position for yourself, and when the enemy is trapped, you need to attack. Having heard about some strange traps, the guy begins to doubt. He understands that in order to create a trap, he needs to prepare for it. Kanho continues saying that honestly, in a battle with a stocky beast, all means are fair. He cannot afford this. If he hesitates, he will die. Next, our main character, looking at his sensei, understands that he is clearly planning something not very good and immediately abandons his idea. Kon Yujong continues by saying that knowing how dangerous it is, ever since he came to Jeonju, he has been forcing him to fight in a real fight. Our main character's sensei hurries to reassure him. He apologizes, saying that he then underestimated the hunt for those bastards. Their weight categories are very different. Kanho continues to reassure our protagonist by saying that from now on he will tell him everything in detail, so he doesn't have to worry about anything. Next, the guy with red hair reports that everything he just said was connected with man versus animal, but man versus man is a different story. At this moment, a special guest who was invited by Kanho comes onto the stage. He gives a sign to the guest saying that the guest can leave. A girl already familiar to us comes onto the stage. Her name is Hwang Chungmi. She was very unhappy with being called. She was a member of the Red Tiger. Her transformation gene is Tigress. Next, a man versus man fight was supposed to begin between them, because Chalmi is in the same weight category as him, so such a confrontation would be more beneficial. Kanho asks Jungmi how she fights if she doesn't transform. The girl we knew earlier answers that she uses weapons in human form. The girl reports that if she fights in human form, without weapons and in her weight category, the limits of reach, strength, and short, there are many disadvantages. Next, the guy worriedly asks these two what will happen if there is a situation in which it is not possible to use weapons. What to do then? Kangho tells his student that this is a really good question, while Youngmi notices the guy's frequent stuttering and reports that it infuriates her. The girl replies that when you fight and lose your vigilance, you need to use grappling, but if you figure it out and master the technique, then it's over. Chanho continues saying that during a fight with a person, you need to try to grab until the end, but after the animal you need to lure and hit quickly, and grappling and striking should be done well. Next, the girl tells the guy to stop using useless conversations, because lately there has been too much chatter at Chunshin High School. She has increased the protection, but there are more scammers. Kangho then wonders if they were supposed to meet in the vicinity of Chunshin School. Next, the sensei of our main character announces that from today, he is announcing the start of a hunt for the bastards who walk around this city. Our main character at this moment is very surprised that they are already starting the hunt for hooligans today, because it is very fast for him. Meanwhile, the red-haired one begins to look for prey among the usual crowds. After a while, he sees suitable prey for him. Next, the red-haired man orders Chomi, who is in his sat, to show them an example of a man versus man battle. However, the girl asks why exactly she should do this. The red tiger replies that his physique is different, and he asks her just once. Fortunately, this man with red hair manages to persuade the previously familiar Chonmi from the very beginning of the video. She begins to warm up in order to fight. The girl begins to say that the most important thing in every fight to win is to correctly understand the enemy in order to come up with combat tactics. Approaching the losers, this girl immediately came to the conclusion that the first bully was a big guy with a high reach. The second was a fat guy with a big difference. The third was short like her. After Chonmi has finished analyzing her opponents, she immediately takes a stance and prepares to destroy these losers. The fight begins with the attack of the same big guy who is trying to knock out the girl with the help of his blow with a long limb. The girl easily dodges attacks and takes an advantageous position. If you want to kill everyone in battle, it is important to reduce the number of heads. First of all, the girl got rid of a guy who was the same short as her. This guy was unremarkable, so knocking him out with one blow was not a problem. Immediately after this, the fat man tries to avenge his little brother by delivering a strong blow, but due to his slowness, the girl easily dodges. After this girl escapes from the fat guy's blow, she manages to go behind the big guy's back to carry out a powerful attack in the back. Kanho believes that Chungmi is a good-natured guy. Then this girl, having a weight that is much less than the guy's weight, knocks him over with suspicious ease, introducing his face to the asphalt. Immediately after the takedown, the girl grabs the big man in a painful hold, leaving him no chance at this moment to easily defeat this opponent, because she suppressed him with a painful hold. Then the girl noticed how the same fat guy whom she left unattended transformed into a bull and began to attack the girl in revenge for her friends. Meanwhile, Chunmi manages to evade the blow again with the help of her fighting skills. While she was dodging the blow, she managed to take on an animal form. Suddenly, the fight stops because our protagonist's red-haired sensei intervenes, attracting the girl's attention and asking him to move away. Next, this muscular guy with red hair approaches this huge bull and declares that he will take this opponent completely upon himself. Kanhu begins to warm up and asks our main character, who is standing on the sidelines, to watch him closely, because now he will suppress the beast while remaining in human form. Meanwhile, the bull with very funny eyes recognizes the red-haired one and is surprised he even recognizes him by name and calls him the name Choi Kangho. Meanwhile, the red-haired one comes even closer to him and is surprised that he knows him. From his appearance, one can understand that he is flattered that he is recognized. However, the bull delivers a powerful uppercut into the air and replies that he does not know such a mediocrity as him. Meanwhile, the guy with red hair avoids the blow. This amazing person is one of the few who, while remaining in human form, can fight back against a person in animal form. The bull is tired of this battle. He believes that this battle is not worth his time. He tries to end this fight ahead of schedule with a knockout, but he gets nothing because the guy disappears. The disappearance of the red-haired guy greatly excites this huge angry bull, who becomes furious because of this. This bull begins to mindlessly rush towards Choi Kangho, trying to hit him, but numerous super powerful blows do not reach their recipient. Next, the red-haired fighting master finds the perfect moment to land a low kick with perfect timing. At this time, our main character stands in surprise on the sidelines with his mouth open, continuing to watch the progress of this amazing confrontation. However, after a moment, this red tiger instantly loses all its advantage, receiving a powerful blow to the head from the horns of this beast. For some reason, this guy does not have enough reaction and speed to avoid this blow, so he flies off more than 10 meters. A couple of moments later, we watch a red tiger who, having missed only one blow, receives enormous damage and ends up lying on his back on the asphalt. Next, this bull looks at his opponent whom he just defeated and is disappointed in him, saying that he is nothing more than an empty rumor. But after a couple of moments, the red-haired guy finds the strength to get to his feet and continue the fight. But he has already lost his grip. Due to the fact that he missed a powerful blow, he temporarily lost his amazing speed and reflexes, so he misses the next blow. Immediately after the first one missed after getting to his feet, there is a second one which causes even more damage to this guy. Next, our main character, after he sees that his mentor is starting to lose, asks the girl if he should help him. The girl answers that he needs it. Meanwhile, even after 3 powerful blows received from a predator in the form of a bull, the guy still standing on his feet asks him to stop. But there was no stopping this bull. He turned into a real truck that was rushing towards this guy at full speed in order to demolish him. This guy is definitely no slouch, because even at such a critical moment, he has the strength to dodge and force the bull to crash into the fence. The bull is in complete shock because he thought that this onslaught would be the last for his opponent, but now his horn caught him in the fence. Finding himself in such a disadvantageous position, the bull looks at the guy with a puzzled look while he begins to laugh and flex his fists. Immediately after a few moments, the guy begins to take advantage of his sudden advantage and kick the weak parts of the bull's legs. After one of the blows to the painful point, the guy injures the bull, forcing him to fall on one knee and beg him to stop beating. Next, we watch as the guy awakens in himself the power of the Star Platinum stand and commits a real aura to this mediocrity. This is his revenge for calling him an empty rumor. This indignant bull who got his horn stuck in the fence looked at Kanho as if he were his daddy, because he realized that until that moment this guy was playing him. Then this fat guy turns back into a human, because he understands that if he continues in the same spirit, he will suffer, and in any case, this puppy has not even turned. After this arrogant idiot turned into a man, he told Kanho to reincarnate, but he did not even realize that this was a fatal mistake. Next, this fat guy gets a powerful turntable that sends this semi-finished product into a long sleep. The fat guy is not able to withstand this blow, so he falls like a useless carcass onto the floor and sweeps the dust off the asphalt with his carcass. Next, we observe again the surprised face of our main character, who does not understand how he, being in human form, works such miracles. After that, our red-haired guy turns to our main character and says that it's nothing special. Youngmi is surprised that, having a broken nose, he says something. After that, these three gather in a corner, and the red tiger reports that even if he talks for 100, even 1,000 days, tactics will remain the most important thing. Next, our main character recalls those same nasty hooligans from Seoul who constantly gave him nightmares and did not allow him to live a normal life. But the memory of these idiots only gives our main character even more emotions in order to motivate him to become even stronger. Next, the sensei of our main character informed him that first he would tell him about the grappling skill that Chunmi had recently demonstrated to him. After all, just recently she showed her grappling art using a technique called a triangle. This is a technique that allows the target to be choked by squeezing the arms and neck. If they succeed in using this technique, the opponent may faint, which can cause a transformation. Next, our main character's sensei demonstrates a grappling technique and says that this method is simple. You just need to twist your arm and neck in one direction. After this, the guy with red hair begins to gradually increase his grip strength, thereby causing a range of emotions in Yujung. He asks the guy if he can get out. Judging by the guy, he not only cannot get out, he also cannot even move, and with another increase in strength, he is ready to fall back. As I said, as soon as Choi Kang-hoo lets go of our main character, he falls face down on the asphalt. The girl calls him crazy because how will he control the power? The course of events moves just 20 minutes later. The two are engaged in wrestling using grappling techniques. Our main character is currently making a triangle to the red-haired man. After some time, the red-haired man gets up and says that he felt sufficient pressure. He adds that if he fails to grab the enemy, he will be beaten. After Jeon Yu-jung finishes his first grappling training session, he scratches his neck and says that he felt very awkward the first time. The red-haired man, hearing this, called it nonsense and added that if he thinks about it during practice, he will kiss the floor for it. The guy continued by saying, "Although it takes a lot of time to use these techniques in practice, you cannot do without it. Therefore, our main character needs to fight indecision in order to succeed." Then the guy asks for advice from Chunmi to speed up progress. The girl gives her advice without hesitation. Her advice is brief but clear. You need to attack first in every battle in order to be more likely to achieve success. Having heard advice from the girl, our main character thanked her for such a simple but certainly effective advice, but it was time for them to move forward. Next, the girl turns to Choi Kang-ho, telling him that these days she is busy here and there. He asked why he was looking after her. He asked if she saw any weakness. The coach or sensei of this team explained to the girl that he had said that he was studying new training methods in order to educate new members of the pack. The girl is surprised because she did not expect that this would be the reason why the red-haired man takes care of her. Next, the red-haired guy told our main character that he too suffered a lot due to the fact that he did not know how to transform. He continued his story by saying that if he had never met Potato Grandpa and Shuri Hyun, he would now be living like a petty bully and continue to do so. This guy and our main character have very different personalities, but it's the same as looking at him back then. If they helped him, then he can help Yu-jung. The girl remembered that the red-haired man also couldn't transform. That's why he was beaten all the time. For the first time in a long time, there was a serious conversation, and this girl didn't listen. A few moments later, we watch as our main character was heading somewhere. He continued to walk in homeless clothes. The guy thinks about what could be because he stole potatoes, climbed a rock, risking his life. He felt that after all this, his heart hardened. Realizing all this, our main character began to understand that his self-confidence was also beginning to increase because the streets were no longer as scary as before. Walking through dark alleys, our main character, or rather our new main character, notices that some blonde man is trying to rob a nerd. Kang Yu-jung remembered that he is now stronger, and his task is to punish the pathetic hooligans who offend the weak. Filled with confidence and clenching his fists, our main character began to move towards the bully with thoughts of trying to punish him for his impudence. Meanwhile, this blonde bully in a mask finished humiliating the guy with glasses and headed somewhere in the direction of Yu-jung, closely watching him. Watching him, our main character thought about what method he should use to fight this loser. He tried to analyze the situation and choose the best method. After a couple of moments, this hooligan who mows down the idol's K-pop turns to Yujong and asks what he's shooting at. Let him get out of here. The guy is convinced that he's a hooligan. After that, this low-grade idol hooligan was convinced that our main character did not intend to run away anywhere. He looked at him with the gaze of a predator. Instead of running away as before, our main character, on the contrary, clenched his fists and headed out to punish this loser. However, he didn't feel at ease for long, because literally a second later he went into free fall towards his favorite asphalt. Feeling his superiority, the guy looked down on this loser and told him that right now he would grind him to dust. Immediately after this blonde man jumped up to our main character and started kicking him in the stomach, throwing a party there. Continuing to deliver blow after blow, the bully asked him if he really thought that he would be afraid that the tiger cub with golden eyes was climbing on him. However, our main character was not at a loss, but was waiting for the moment for a counterattack that would give him dominance in this battle. Having found the perfect moment, he knocked the bully to the floor. He realized that he did not need to pretend that he lost like Kanho because, in any case, bullies. People like him always climb up. Then after our main character knocked down the blonde, he found himself on horseback and reached out to him with his hand. Our main character simply hated the bully with all his heart, so he decided that right now he would grab this loser and strangle him with his own hands. Our protagonist's grip at this stage of his personal development as a fighter was strong enough to put a lot of stress on this loser. Next, our main character remembers that he recently behaved like a fool, thereby taking the enemy by surprise. Right down to the kicks, everything was done incorrectly. Meanwhile, our main character, continuing to strangle his first victim, thought that after a long time his mission seemed to be successful the first time. But after a couple of seconds, our main character wondered how long he should remain in this position, continuing to strangle his opponent. Suddenly, the words of his teacher surfaced in the head of our main character about what he would do if his opponent turned out to be a porcupine or a hedgehog. Remembering these words, our main character instantly jumped away from his opponent, fearing that he might actually turn out to be a porcupine or a hedgehog. After a couple of seconds, we watched the transformation of this bully. We see that this guy really turned into a hedgehog anymore, and Yujong would have received a ton of damage. This furious hedgehog looked at Kang Yujong with the eyes of a killer and accused him of causing his school uniform to be irretrievably destroyed. He will answer for this. Meanwhile, Choi Kang-ho and the girl who was in his pack watched Yujong's first fight. The guy was surprised that the bully turned out to be a hedgehog. Next, Chunmi turned to the red-haired one, saying that the enemy with the genome of turning into a hedgehog is not dangerous, but he briefly replied that he is dangerous. The girl, pointing her finger at our main character, asked the guy if he had told him how to fight with thorny animals. The red-haired one replied that no. However, Choi Kang-ho continued by saying that in any case, it is useless to learn theory first. He needs to first try and then listen and understand. Then the guy with red hair went downstairs as quickly as possible because he said what he thought and did not know that the hedgehog would actually appear. Meanwhile, our main character below, who had been fighting all this time with a thorny beast with which he has no idea how to fight, stood wounded. Kang Yujong began to panic, and not without reason, because he had no idea how to behave with people with the genome of turning into spiny animals. Yujong looked around and realized that there was not a single object around him that he could use as a weapon or as a trap. He began to panic because after looking around the entire street around him, he realized that not a single good thought came to his mind. Next, this arrogant hedgehog pointed to his neck and urged our main character to try, as before, to strangle him with his technique. After that, this funny hedgehog asked our main character what animal essence he had. He asked this question because he didn't even transform. However, the bully withdrew his question, saying that in fact he was not interested, because until he paid for his school uniform, he would not leave him alone. The next moment, the hedgehog closed the distance with our main character and made an uppercut, which achieved its goal without much difficulty. The hedgehog continued to strike blow after blow at this loser, because our main character could not answer him in any way because of his thorns. Once again, finding himself on the verge of defeat, our main character lost his head, realizing that he would probably be beaten again this time. But the guy does not lose heart, because he believes that it is impossible that after just 1 month of training, everything would work out well for him right away. But remembering the events from the potato farm and the elephant's grandfather, he realized that this time he was not afraid as before, and felt completely different. Next, his sensei pops up in our main character's head and reports that he can easily tear off the horns of that bull's head. His trainer continues by saying that depending on the nature of the beast, something can always trip him up. But also something can confuse the enemy against whom the battle is taking place, and this something is a prepared trap. At this moment, during the fight with the hedgehog, the guy realizes that, judging by the words of his sensei, He needs to do something that can confuse his opponent. Then the guy, immersed in thought, began to think about what method he could confuse his opponent. Suddenly he came up with something. Our main character the next moment began to do something clearly confusing even to us. He began to take off his shoes in the middle of the fight. Kon Yu-jung coped with the task assigned to him and called our main character an idiot, but at the same time he was confused. Meanwhile, our main character's teacher and his pack member Chonmi have almost reached the place where our main character and the hedgehog bully are fighting. However, the red-haired tiger stopped when he saw that his smart student had come up with something, and even he was puzzled by his strange idea. Next, the red tiger stopped his friend Chonmi, telling her to let them watch the battle a little more before intervening in it. The next moment we watch as our main character, being in a fighting stance, puts his sneakers on his hands like boxing gloves. Meanwhile, our main character understands in his head that the hedgehog's weakness is that its front part of the body is soft, and it also quickly loses stamina. Kang Yu-jung understands that after he has protected his hands from the thorns, if he delivers a strong blow to the stomach or solar plexus, he will win. The surprised hedgehog looks at Yu-jung and tells him that he thought that after he took off his shoes he would transform, but he does not completely transform. This mad hedgehog lunged at our main character, saying that he would see how long he could maintain his position. After the hedgehog had sufficiently shortened the distance with the tiger, he managed to strike our main character, which he took. However, while our main character received this blow, he was aiming at the place where he was going to make a counterattack from an unprotected area. But instead of counterattacking, our main character, after seeing that the hedgehog was trying to attack him with his back, tried to hold back his back with his gloves. Despite this strange idea, our protagonist managed to contain the ardor of this hedgehog, and his idea was actually not that bad. Immediately after the blocked blow, Kang Yu-jung did not waste any precious time and struck the hedgehog with his sneakers right in the belly. While preparing his second blow, he realized that there were no victims at all on the inside of his body, and everyone could see that this was his weak point. Having collected in his head all the thoughts that were capable of bringing him victory, our protagonist, with complete determination, clenched his fist as tightly as possible before striking. The next picture is simply a paradise for the eyes for those who have watched up to this point, because our loser finally gives a worthy rebuff to his offender. This blow, for our protagonist's first serious blow, is surprisingly strong and sends the hedgehog lying on his back on the asphalt. Kang Yu-jung got a taste for seeing that his blow caused damage to the hedgehog. He immediately prepared a second blow while he had time. As planned, our main character simply took advantage of the time perfectly to inflict as much damage as possible in the shortest possible time. The next frame is again a paradise for the eyes. 2 blows from our protagonist are enough to bring this loser out of beast form. At this time, his support group, who have been watching the progress of this battle all this time, are also unusually happy about such a huge success of Yu-jung. Meanwhile, the nerd who was being bullied by this blonde bully, who had just been beaten by our main character, crawled around the corner to check what happened. A legendary moment, our main character raises his head up and looking at the sky realizes that he has finally defeated someone with his own strength. Then, after the victory, our main character bends down to the bully in order to take from him what he recently took from the nerd in the alley. After this, the wounded and dumbfounded Yu-jung moves to the botan in order to return his money, which he returned with his sweat and blood. Next, our main character, having reached the nerd, hands him a stack of bills that was taken from him and tells him to take his money. At this moment, the teacher of our main character grabs his head from the distance and realizes what his student has just done. After our GigaChad returns the money to the nerd, he turns around to leave somewhere. The nerd is probably in shock from the terrible injuries of the guy who returned the money to him. Then a surprise happens. The nerd catches up with Yu-jung and, putting his money in his hands, says that he was cool and he definitely needs to heal his wounds. After our main character gets the money back, he watches as the nerd then runs away, turning around thanks to our main character. Looking at several banknotes of money, our main character experiences a feeling of resonance. He realizes that he too can fight with criminals. Next, the red-headed guy tells his friend Chonmi that in front of her is, whatever one may say, his first pupil. He says this with a wide smile on his face. The girl touches with her own hands the rags in which our main character is standing and tells him to at least dress it normally if he is his first student. The red tiger explains that this is male brutality. Next, the girl looks at our main character and asks him, puzzled, why the hell he's standing there crying. There are exactly 59 days left before the predators return to school, and our main character is crying because he is glad that he won the fight for the first time. The girl calls him a loser. The course of events accelerates and we are transported to the evening of the same day. We watch as Chonmi treats the wounds of our main character, and at the same time he screams in pain. Looking at our main character, Chonmi is surprised that he endured all these blows, but when processed, he sheds crocodile tears from pain. At this time, Choi Kang-ho continues to walk with a huge smile on his face. He tells the girl that he, by the way, grabbed a hedgehog, which is very good. The girl at least once acknowledges the merits of our main character, saying that this is not bad, but this idiot hedgehog was a completely inattentive opponent. Then the girl says that both the hedgehog and the buffalo, now there are a lot of freaks that are somehow too easy to meet lately. She understands that this is probably a new pack. However, the red-haired tiger reports that for a new pack they show up too rarely. In the guy's opinion, they seem to be just hired guys. The guy sitting on his bench press rack says that he asked to find out about this case, telling Chonmi that she will be contacted soon. As the red tiger said, a few moments later the girl's phone receives a call, most likely related to what the red tiger said. Chonmi takes the phone in her hands and then answers. During the conversation, you can understand that her name is to go somewhere, to which the girl replies that she will be there soon. Next, we watch as Chonmi quickly walks towards the exit. The red tiger says goodbye to Chonmi. Kang Yu-jung asks his sensei where the girl went. The guy replies that she went somewhere to resolve a dangerous situation. But as usual, due to the fact that things are not going well in this city, the city association hires street gangs to provide security. Therefore, in order to take even more areas under protection, street people invade other people's territory by committing crimes and attacking directly. That is why he says that new items are very important in their gang, so the role of our main character in this experiment is huge. Red-haired adds that at first he didn't even have the thought of showing it, but now he won't give it away, so he needs to learn everything while he's in Jeonju. After receiving this strange notebook, our main character opens it and notices the strange notes of a red tiger. For someone who cannot transform, this is a special fit. Inside this amazing notebook are the construction of traps, the strengths and weaknesses of each animal, and much more useful for people like him. The guy also adds that he sometimes rejoices because he couldn't transform, so he studied hard and fought because idiots who easily turn into idiots. Next, the sensei of our main character gives him instructions so that Yu-jung always attacks the weak points that he has learned, and if he is also attentive, he will not know defeat. Our main character, superficially studying the contents of this amazing notebook, says that it is simply amazing. He thanks the guy for such a precious notebook. Looking at his sensei's notebook in surprise, the guy understands how Kanho lives. The more he looks, the more he feels how hard it was for his teacher when he acquired this knowledge. Even despite this, our main character continued to be interested in one question, so he directly told this to the Red Wolf. Next, our main character directly asked his sensei how he managed to transform. He asks him to tell it in detail. In response to this question, the red-haired wolf laughs loudly and says that he has been waiting for this question from our main character for a very long time. However, our protagonist sensei smiles and tells Kang Yu-jung that there's really nothing special about his first transformation. Choi Tanho begins to say that at that moment he was surrounded by 12 people, and by that time he received bodily injuries that were impossible to defeat. But the people who surrounded him at that moment were his most beloved group. He was in a position in which it was absolutely impossible to lose. But on that very day, he defeated as many as 12 of the transformed ones, but in the end he knelt before them. Due to the bullying of one of the bastards, anger due to defeat, humiliation, various emotions swirled in his heart at this moment. He was terribly angry. After this, the guy went into a rage, but when he came to his senses, he realized that all the people who were around him were already lying on the floor unconscious. But the red-haired man did not understand why he turned into that moment, because he was driven into a corner, or because he was too angry. This is where his story ends. Meanwhile, our main character, according to all his canons, stood with his mouth wide open and asked his teacher if he really defeated 12 people at once. Raising dumbbells on his biceps, the red-haired man said that usually if you can't transform when you grow up, it means you experienced a strong shock in childhood. He asked the guy if he was the same. Kang Yu-jung told his sensei that when he was 7 years old, his mother died. Since then, he has not been able to transform. The reason is unknown to him. He has no memories of that day. After Choi Kang-ho heard that our main character's mother had died, he asked how she left this world. Scratching his head, our main character replied that it seems like some incident happened that day, but he doesn't remember anything. He asked his father several times, but he didn't answer. But if you think about it recently, memories of his mother often pop up in our main character's head like a torn image. Continuing to nervously lift huge dumbbells onto his biceps, the red-haired man said that he too could not calm down in those days because of the memories. Next, this Choi Kang-ho receives a call on his mobile phone, and he immediately answers because it's Jungmi who is calling him and reporting something to him. Judging by the face of our main character's sensei, something clearly very unpleasant happened. even very, very unpleasant. Immediately after the end of the telephone conversation, the red-haired guy quickly runs away, saying that he will not be there for a while. But for now, he instructs the guy to exercise. Then the guy realizes that his sensei's first transformation is connected with childhood trauma. He wonders what kind of story he is hiding from him. However, in any case, if his mentor says that he has transformed himself in this way, it means that even without knowing whether he will succeed, he will also study hard. Next, our main character approaches the fence, and even if he looks at the criminal Jeonju, he understands that as long as he remains here, he will work hard until death. The course of events is interrupted and resumed the next day. We watch our cheerful main character heading somewhere. At this moment, the life of our main character begins to go completely differently. He approaches hooligans without any fear for himself and deals with them just as easily. Immediately after the showdown, he, like any other Sigma, goes to the gym to lift heavy things in order to develop muscles and be cooler and stronger. After hard physical training, our main hero returns home and eats a lot in order to gain muscle mass. He simultaneously combines all of the above with the daily beatings of hooligans who offend the weak. Our main character is simply unrecognizable. After such a hard day, our main character, like any other Valorant or League of Legends player, goes to sleep with another man, restoring his muscles. Immediately after this, he again heads out onto the streets of this criminal city in order to punish the losers and help the weak, a true hero. Our main character is so productive these days that he even manages to study from his sensei's notebook every day, devoting a lot of time to it. He also remembers to practice martial arts with his packmate to improve his fighting skills. As I said earlier, our main character combines all everyday activities with beating up hooligans, which gradually becomes a routine for him. Next, we watch our main character fight a deer with a bat. At this time, there are 30 days left before returning to Seoul. In the next frame, we are transported another 15 days ahead, so there are already 15 days left before returning to Seoul, and he continues to train. We then watch as only 6 days remain before returning to Seoul. This time, Kang Yu-jong is already more confident in destroying his enemies. His red-haired teacher is watching all this all the time. Looking at him, he says that it's all thanks to the excellent teacher. Even the girl recognizes the guy's merits. Meanwhile, the course of events ends abruptly, and we move back to Seoul, which we all already miss. Next, we watch as a joyful teacher enters the school of predators because the summer holidays are over and the second semester has finally begun. Then we watch the Grey Wolf, already familiar to us, who thought that the rank order had not yet been formed. Walking through the school grounds, the Grey Wolf notices that wherever he looks, he observes countless fights that still do not stop. Watching the endless fights, the Grey Wolf understands that during this period, there is simply no safe place in the school of predators. Next, the frame will focus on our main character, who, dressed in a school uniform, enters the school grounds, exhaling air from excitement. The course of events moves to the day our protagonist arrives in Seoul. His figure is no longer recognizable because he has gained a fair amount of muscle mass. This event was legendary, because it was the return of Kang Yu-jong himself to the school of predators. I remind you that he was the very last and everyone beat him up. Apparently it's lunchtime at the school of predators. We are watching a Grey Wolf who sits alone and eats his portion of the school lunch. Then we notice a nasty guy we already know with the genome of turning into a leopard or something like that. He deliberately hurts one and the students of the school. This student clearly notices a huge lack of respect for himself, and with all his eyes he tries to convey it to this nasty upstart. However, this guy apologizes to Sunbaeun, saying that he just wanted to pass. This guy is a freshman named So Do-ha from the 4th group. Watching this performance, the Grey Wolf understands that this is So Do-chul's pack. Even 2nd and 3rd year Sunbaes do not associate with the strongest pack of the school. Even though the leader So Do-chul was expelled from the Predator School, even so, his influence remained simply enormous within the Predator School. Next, we watch a guy with blonde hair and piercings. This is also a freshman from the 4th group from So Do-chul's pack. He has the 2nd rank in the pack. His name is Kim Yu. Next, we watch Kim Jones's pack, which is in no way inferior to So Do-chul's pack. The head of this pack is Kim Kyun-soo. This pack shows the greatest cohesion in the school. The next moment in this ordinary school canteen, a real fight begins between two huge flocks of this school. Next, students from the 3rd group come on stage. Guo Yu-song from the Yang Zui pack. He is a 4th rank freshman. Suddenly, the Grey Wolf, whose name by the way is Wu Chunghwa in case you forgot, is approached by some duck from some pack. This blonde man with a terrifying mohawk simply points to the Grey Wolf somewhere to the right and asks him to clean up the broken glass. The guy doesn't understand what he's talking about. Next, this person, deprived of intelligence, throws a small stone at the window, thereby breaking it into pieces in order to create work for the gray wolf. After that, this witty blonde leaves the class and tells the gray wolf to come back after it's over. But due to relatively recent events a month ago, our gray wolf is no longer allowed to do whatever he wants, so he sighs and approaches the broken glass. After a while, Ucho Nwo does what he is told and collects the broken glass fragments in a dustpan and throws them out, following the order of the idiot. After the gray wolf finishes cleaning up the broken glass, he leaves the classroom and begins to walk along the school corridor. The gray wolf, without touching anyone, simply walks further along the corridor and does not foretell anything of trouble, except for two idiots who are walking towards him. Next, the guy with short black hair decides that he just needs to introduce the gray wolf's forehead to the school wall right now. The gray wolf shows the composure of the Giga Chad and does not pay attention, and the guy with black hair apologized, saying that he did not know that he was nearby. The second guy, who apparently could not become an independent person, adds that Seonghwa asked him to convey this acquaintance with the wall. Next, this guy with gray hair but not a gray wolf tries to carry out a powerful blow on the guy, but this blow was blocked by the gray wolf without much difficulty. This guy, thinking that he is really capable of scaring someone, threatens the guy so that he does not come across the eyes of the second group. At this time, the gray wolf does not think for a second about the meaning of the words that are spoken to him. He only thinks that such things tire him greatly. Next, the guy picks up a crumpled letter that they asked to give to him. Looking at the letter, he understands that this is a letter from our main character. But this guy is again interrupted from opening the contents of the letter, and calmly reading it, he is interrupted by some girl. This waifu's name is Jeon Seolwa. She tells the guy that she was told to tell him that Cho Seonghwa told him to go behind the first class building. The gray wolf, as if nothing had happened, rises to his feet, helping himself with his hands, and thanks the girl for passing on the information to him. After a few moments, the gray wolf approaches the destination that the girl recently handed over to him. A guy stands in place smoking cigarettes. He breaks away from smoking and asks the gray wolf why he came here without his knowledge, and so on. The gray wolf briefly replies that he was called to this place at this time by Cho Seonghwa. The guy standing here earlier is surprised, saying that he was also called by him. Then these two simultaneously hear a strange rustling in the bushes, and at the same time turn around to look at the source of this strange noise. Next, the face of our main character falls out of this bush, which you, the viewer, have probably already missed. These two, seeing our main character after 3 months of his academic leave, are simply shocked by his sudden, unexpected, and moreover, strange appearance. Yoojung explains all this by saying that he just wanted to show up as coolly as possible and surprise his friend with his appearance. While the guy on the left calls the kitten a complete idiot for his appearance, the gray wolf immediately noticed huge changes in his body that were impossible not to notice. Getting up from his beloved friend on the asphalt, our main character asks these two how they were, because they had not seen each other for a very long time, and in fact it was he who called them. Next, this guy, feeling cool, asked our main character to repeat the words he said right now. Our main character, addressing the gray wolf or Chonghwa, reminded him that he wrote to him in a letter that he would return as soon as he became stronger. Without having time to continue talking about the fact that his words were not just words but a promise, our main character manages to receive the first blow upon returning to Seoul. The guy with the bangs angrily kicked our protagonist, accusing him of missing precious time from his equally precious sleep because of his letter. This idiot continued to swing his arms to strike, asking if he disappeared in the mountains all day long to come back and again receive from everyone. This idiot tried to knock out the guy. However, this guy was very mistaken in thinking that in front of him was the same Yoojung who would stand still in order to take the blow. After the gray wolf saw how his friend dodged the second blow of this loser with amazing speed, he was very surprised. Having increased the distance between himself and the enemy, our main character, without having time to talk normally, immediately pulled a glove on his hand. This inadequate person immediately rushed after our main character to teach him a lesson for interrupting his precious sleep. He chased him and asked why he jumped away. Meanwhile, Kang Yoojung calmly put on his second glove and easily dodged the powerful blow of this scum and prepared to reward him with a retaliatory blow. At this moment, Park Da-seol did not understand at all what was happening, because before he had dealt with this loser without much difficulty, but now everything is different. Preparing for a powerful retaliatory strike, he remembered that before going to Jeonju where he became stronger, he had already seen his fists. Next, we watch Revenge, which is always served like a cold dish because Park Da-seol, who repeatedly beat our main character, got hit in the face by him. The blow was so strong that it forced this loser to lie on the asphalt and count the stars even though it was a clear day outside. Looking at his lying opponent and tightly clenching his fist, our main character said that although before he did not have enough skills, but now this is far from the case. At this moment, what was most surprised was his friend who always supported him when he was a loser. His surprise knew no bounds, as did his jaw, which broke all records for sagging. However, this blow only angered him even more. While Cher, after receiving a powerful blow from a man who was a punching bag for him, he flew into a rage. The next moment, he transformed into his animal form in order to remind Yuzhny who the daddy is. Immediately after Park Da-sol transformed into his beast form, his friend the Grey Wolf also transformed into his form in order to save Yujung. However, our main character, in response to the transformation of his opponent, only adjusted his gloves and told his friend that he had nothing to worry about and he could handle it himself. Next, our main character looked at his friend and smiled, saying that if he grabbed one, he would be able to challenge the head of the first group. The course of events of this interesting fight is interrupted, and we move to events a little later than this meeting, watching our main character sitting in some room of the school. Next, our main character is surprised that he sees Jung Seol-hwa and Cho Young-hwa in front of him. They are also surprised because they thought that our main character transferred to another school. These girls immediately notice that our protagonist's body begins to look much better than it looked before he left. They conclude that he trained hard. Next, this guy amuses the girls that he actually has something to tell them, but they should wait a while. This guy decides to say what he wanted to say right now, so he comes up to them and briefly tells them about the latest news. Our protagonist's story, for some reason, makes these two girls laugh out loud at what our protagonist tells us. They laughed so loud because our main character was telling them that he was going to go one-on-one with Park Da-seol and destroy him. They also laughed because of his naive plan with soaking. Despite the fact that the girls did not take seriously the things that our main character told them, they still agreed to help him with his little plan. Next, our main character set the condition that if he copes with this Park Da-seol alone, then they will join the pack of the Grey Wolf. He added saying that in order for them to take possession of the first group, they would need their strength. Hearing this ridiculous babble of our albeit pumped-up protagonist this time, these two again laughed heartily at our protagonist and his plan. Next, this girl pushed our main character on the shoulder and told him to stop talking nonsense and move. However, the second girl, unlike the first, was interested in what would happen if they still helped our main character organize this fight. And so it happened that our main character managed to lure Park Da-seol to this place for a fight, and of course the Grey Wolf, they watched the battle from afar. Watching the outcome of the battle, one of the girls understands that our main character was not just wagging his tongue, but was really serious. Meanwhile, the fight between Kang Yoo-jung and Park Da-seol continued, but this time Park Da-seol was a beast in shape to confidently defeat the weakling. Immediately after the transformation of his opponent, our main character made a very strange-looking decision to take off in order to escape from the battlefield. Meanwhile, Park Da-seol, thinking that his opponent was really going to just run away, asked him if he really thought that he would succeed. Next, we watch as the arrogant Park Da-seol, in the form of a leopard, makes a confident leap towards our main character. But suddenly his movement stops when his foot falls into a trap, prepared in advance by our main character, which fixes the kitten in place. This stupid leopard does not immediately understand that he has just fallen into the ingenious trap of our protagonist, which was set in advance. After Kang Yoo-jung watches the trap go off, he realizes that the trap he built from a hole in the school asphalt worked just fine. In his thoughts, he understood that it was not possible for Park Da-seol to get out of the large leg that had grown after the transformation. Then our main character reached out with his hand into the bush. Meanwhile, the leopard was thinking that right now he felt something sharp with his foot in this strange trap. He was sure of it. However, a moment later, our protagonist is transported to the Miami hotline and makes a powerful series of bat attacks on this idiot. Continuing to deliver powerful blow after blow, our main character informs him that this is all a gift that he prepared especially for him. However, in an instant, the beating of this kitten stops because he has enough reactions to grab the wooden battle of our main character. Immediately after successfully stopping our protagonist's attack, he, in the hope of winning, makes a blow aimed directly at our protagonist's head. But the next moment he is surprised to realize that something very terrible and unexpected has happened. After all, this quick blow, executed in animal form which should have easily reached Yoo-jung, did not reach him due to his unusually quick reaction. Further, the feelings of this loser were seriously dulled because, being a representative of the cat family, he felt catnip and lost his mind from it. Meanwhile, our main character explains that for his sake, he applied catnip powder to the bat because he was worried that if there was no reaction, but he was worrying in vain. After our main character became a Geiga child and realized that the catnip had just given him an advantage, he began to beat Park Da-sol even harder with this bat. While Park Da-sol accused our protagonist of prearranged traps and catnip, he continued to receive hit after hit with a wooden baseball bat. Realizing that he is simply in a terrible situation, he realizes that he has no other choice but to turn back into human form. Then this idiot turns into a human form because he thinks that even without the beast form, he has enough strength to deal with this pathetic kitten. However, instead of quick reprisals against our main character, Park Da-sol receives only the silhouette of a baseball bat flying at great speed into his face. The next moment we watch as Kang Yoo-jung is already preparing the next most powerful attack right on Park Da-sol's face with his foot. The Grey Wolf, watching this amazingly thoughtful battle from the side of our main character, watches with bated breath what will happen next. As expected, our main character performs a powerful kick right in the jaw of this idiot who imagines himself to be the strongest in school. The blow turns out to be so strong that Park Da-sol decides to sign up as a volunteer because then he begins to sweep the dirty asphalt with his body for no reason. Having performed this huge series of powerful blows, our main character only bends down to exhale the stagnant air in his lungs. Next, we watch Park Da-sol, who was literally eaten by our main character just now without a single chance in favor of this loser. After our main character realizes his quick victory, he realizes that he has become so strong that he can defeat even a carnivorous predator. Next, we watch as his best friend, a gray wolf, runs towards our main character and screams his name. The gray wolf, reaching our main character, says that this fight was simply amazing because he defeated the predator even without turning into his animal form. The gray wolf asks his friend in surprise what happened in the end. Our main character replies that he will calmly tell him everything later. Next, the same two girls who organized this meeting join the conversation. The two of them did not expect that our main character would seriously defeat Park Da-sol because they thought that this was impossible. Next, one of the girls who supported the idea of our hero fighting the beast called him a very interesting person. She asked if what he mentioned in the morning was valid. After this proposal from the girl, our enthusiastic protagonist tells the Grey Wolf that he offered these two if he alone beats Pak Dal to join their pack. The guy is surprised because he didn't expect that having disappeared for 3 months and returning back, our main character would remember his idea to gather a new flock. Next, the Grey Wolf puts his hand on our main character's shoulder and suggests changing the name of the pack to Kang Yoo-jung's pack. The guy is clearly very surprised by this. This proposal from his friend makes our main character think a lot because he did not expect such a turn of events. However, such a sudden change in the head of the pack makes the girls think because they are not ready to accept our main character as their leader of the pack. After a while, these girls tell the two to forget the talk of them joining their pack since they won't be able to recognize Kang Yoo-jung as the head of the pack. Meanwhile, Kang Yoo-jung, looking at his friend, asks him which one is the leader because this is nonsense. The wolf replies that he also prepared a special thing for today so that they are equal. Next, the Grey Wolf mysteriously looks at the wall and says that he is not the one who will become a leader. According to him, he will not be able to cope with this task well. Unlike our main character, who, unlike him, has charisma and the ability to attract people to him, and now he has also become stronger. Next, the Grey Wolf extends his right hand to our main character and invites him to become his right hand. He asks if he will accept his offer. Despite all attempts to dissuade the Grey Wolf from this, he still agrees to be the right hand of our protagonist in his new pack. But after hesitating a little, the main character still shakes the hand of his only friend and soul, and says that first of all they need to start all over again. All this time, all the events that took place in the schoolyard were watched by some guy with black hair who was surprised at who our main character was, noticing how interesting he was fighting. This guy is surprised that our main character appears at school again. After a very long time, he wonders if there is any point in this. The course of events is interrupted and resumed when our main character, together with his right hand, approaches two girls and invites them to join their pack. The Grey Wolf proudly invites everyone to join their pack, where the head is our main character, Kang Yoo-jung, whom everyone remembers as a school loser. However, everyone whom these two approached after they heard who the leader of this pack was, turned around and walked away. No one recognized him as the leader of the pack. Some of those who were invited to the pack asked these two if they really thought that at least someone wanted to be subordinate to someone. After a long session of refusing to join their flock, our main character sits down somewhere in the corner and is sad at such a sad outcome. The Grey Wolf informs the leader of the new pack that absolutely everyone refused to join the pack, which is strange. If he were the leader, everyone would agree to join. Next, our main character suggested to his friend to cheer him up because they wouldn't succeed if he lost his morale like that and gave up. After a few minutes of searching, our main character, delighted, takes out a notebook from his backpack, saying that he has a plan B, which was developed in case no one follows them. Next, Kang Yoo-jung begins to enthusiastically read the manual on how to be a Sigma and so on in order to become a millionaire and successful. Moments later, we watch as a commotion breaks out at the Predator School, with a blonde bully running around the school looking for Seonghwa. Finally finding Seonghwa, a guy with blonde hair approaches her and asks her if she remembers the little boy who couldn't transform and was still in class with Woo Chowa. The girl replies that she remembers. The guy continues saying that he did not leave school at all but returned again, after which the actions of the Grey Wolf became unusual. The bully continued to report saying that the Grey Wolf said that he was gathering a group of children from the first grade. He asked if it looked like he was strengthening power. Hearing this, Seonghwa begins to grind his teeth nervously because she simply cannot believe that this pathetic mongrel actually went against her word. The evil girl reminds her subordinates that she told them to ask the Grey Wolf to quit his studies so that he would be scared and not even touch her. Next, the girl ordered her subordinates to call Jo Sang-ho and tell him to immediately crush these two bugs who are causing problems again. And if they can't deal with them, she will say to make sure that others from the first group do not follow them, and she will take care of this tonight. The course of events is interrupted and moves to Park Da-sol, who at this time apparently had just woken up and stood up, shaking off the dust from his clothes. Park Da-sol is embarrassed by this defeat, so he won't tell anyone about it, 99% that he just went home. The guy understands that, like last time, until he deals with the annoying Grey Wolf, he better lie low until he disappears again. Watching Park Da-sol furiously hit everything he sees while being beaten like a dog, we understand that he is out of the game indefinitely. Meanwhile, our main character tells his right-hand man that he did research and realized that Jo Sang-ho said that he was not at school all this time. Our main character summed up that this fact means that Cho Sakno still does not know that they have again continued their activities in the School of Predators. These two understand that during this period when there is no leader, this is their golden time in which they need to hurry in order to take control of the first class before Jo Sang-ho finds out about it. The Grey Wolf is emotionlessly surprised, yes, this is also possible. He understands that in any case, Cho Sang-ho is absent, so it is possible to take control of the class. Our main character confirms the goal of today, which is to take control of the first class because they can do enough. Suddenly, the Grey Wolf realizes that our main character is going to take control of the entire first group in just one day. He is very surprised at such a high bar. Next, the Grey Wolf answers, even though in his head it seems impossible, but looking at our main character, for some reason it seems to him that he will succeed. Asking Yoo-jung what the plan is, our main character took out his notebook and proudly declares that the plan is to defeat the entire group from behind. Their first target will be this stinking blonde who is currently in the position of leading the first group, which means he is their target. Next, our main character, using a JoJo gate, approaches this blonde with the intention of gobbling him up in front of everyone present in the class. He also warned his friend the Grey Wolf not to get involved in this fight under any circumstances. He convinced him that there was no need to worry. Our main character simply asked to watch how Daddy dealt with business. Meanwhile, the blonde noticed Kang Yoo-jung approaching. This blonde immediately jumps up in front of our main character and asks him if he came to play sports or something else. At this very moment, our main character remembers the fact that while in Jeonju, he fought more than 100 times, so he has no need to worry at all. He continues to psych himself up and, looking at this weakling, convinces himself that he can easily defeat this loser with an eccentric hairstyle. However, the number one in the first group does not wait for our main character's answer and grabs Kang Yoo-jung's throat, saying that he is not giving him a damn answer. But what happens next surprises absolutely everyone in the class. All their faces, especially the boys' faces, are writhing in pain. Next, we watch as our main character counterattacked this loser, damaging his musical bells with incredible force. Immediately after this blow, the blonde instantly falls to the floor and asks our main character if he has gone crazy and gone crazy. Then our main character, without waiting for any continuation, continues by picking up a piece of wood and hitting this loser in the face with all his might. This series of unexpected blows performed by our main character makes everyone very surprised because the last time everyone bullied Yoo-jung was 3 months ago. Everyone around is terribly surprised by what Kang Yoo-jung is doing. Only Woo Jong-ho calmly stands aside and watches the beating of the blonde by his friend. Next, our main character squeezes his right hand in front of this loser and says that he is going to win using only his right hand. Looking at Mi-kwon, who is trying to move away from the bell ringing that our main character gave him, he repeats that one right hand is enough for him. Gathering his remaining strength, the blonde makes an attack towards our main character in order to take revenge for all the torment that he caused him in front of everyone.